Title: The Man Who Wasn't Their Father. When protecting my children turned everyone against me. When I came home from work that Friday, my house was too quiet. No cartoons, no laughter, not even the usual sound of my 8-year-old son, Luke, running around with his toy cars. Then I heard voices, low, muffled, coming from the backyard. I followed the sound, and when I looked through the glass door, my heart sang. There he was. Daniel, my ex-husband's best friend turned my ex's new replacement father figure, sitting at the patio table with my kids. They were eating pizza, laughing, completely oblivious to me standing there. He wasn't supposed to be here, not without me, not alone. It's hard to explain how things got this complicated without sounding like the villain. Everyone now says I am. 2 years ago, my marriage fell apart. My ex-husband, Evan, and I had been together for 12 years. And for at least 3 of those, I was living with a stranger. He was emotionally gone, physically absent. And when I found out about the affair with a woman from his office, I didn't even cry. I just felt empty. When we divorced, Evan moved to states away for work. We agreed on a visitation schedule. Had see the kids on holidays, summers, and alternating weekends if he could travel. He didn't. He called sometimes, sent money, sent gifts, but parenting, that was left to me, until Daniel showed up. Daniel had been Evan's friend since college. He was charming, dependable, the kind of man who could fix a leaky faucet and make your kids laugh in the same breath. After the divorce, he started helping out, mowing the lawn, fixing the car, occasionally picking the kids up from school when I was working late. At first, I appreciated it. I even thought he might have been doing it to help Evan indirectly, some kind of misguided loyalty thing. But over time, it changed. He started coming over uninvited, had bring groceries, toys, even books for the kids, had tuck them in sometimes if I was running late from work. Then one night, my daughter, Lily, said something that froze me in place. "Mommy, when you're not home, Daniel says has like our second daddy." I laughed it off at first, but then she added, "He says daddy can't be here right now, so has taking care of us for him." That was when my stomach turned. I confronted Daniel the next day. "Don't ever tell my kids that you're their father," I said. He looked hurt, genuinely surprised. "Melissa, I didn't mean it that way. They just miss having a man around. I'm trying to help." "Help doesn't mean replace," I snapped. He raised his hands. Okay, you're right. I'll back off." And for a while, he did. Or so I thought. A few months later, Evan called me out of nowhere. His voice was angry, sharp. "Melissa, what's this I hear about you not letting Daniel see the kids? What are you talking about?" I asked. "He told me you've been cutting him off. The kids love him. They need consistency, Mel. You can't just take that away." I nearly dropped the phone. "Wait. You and Daniel have been talking about my kids?" "Of course we have," Evan said. "Has there when I can't be. We're trying to give them some stability." I repeated. "You don't get to decide that." "Melissa, you're being selfish," he said coldly. "You can't keep them from everyone who loves them just because you're bitter." And then I realized, somehow in their eyes, I had become the problem. The next week, Daniel called. He said the kids had asked if they could spend a few nights at his place every other week, 3 to 4 days, just to keep their bond strong. He said it so casually, like he was asking for a playdate. I told him no, absolutely not. "You're not their father, Daniel," I said, my voice shaking. "You're a family friend. That's it. You don't get overnight visits." He sighed. "Melissa, they love me. You can't punish them for that." "I'm not punishing anyone. I'm protecting them." He didn't say anything for a long moment. Then, quietly, he said, "You're making a big mistake." 2 days later, I got an email. Not from Daniel, but from Evan. A formal request to reconsider my decision. He even hinted at involving a lawyer. That's when I lost it. I called Evan and screamed into the phone, "You abandoned them. You left, remember? You don't get to hand out fatherhood to someone else just because you're too lazy to do it yourself." He didn't even argue. Just said, "Daniel's a good man. The kids are happy. Maybe it's time you accept that." For the first time since the divorce, I felt truly cornered. I wasn't fighting an ex-husband anymore. I was fighting a narrative. The ungrateful, controlling mom versus the kind, devoted stepdad figure. Even my parents started to question me. "Maybe it wouldn't hurt," my mother said gently. "They're safe with him, and you could use a break." I wanted to scream that safety wasn't the issue, boundaries were. Because here's the truth. I don't trust Daniel, not because he's evil, but because he's too perfect, too patient, too eager to fill a role that doesn't belong to him. There's a hunger behind his kindness, one that feels more about ownership than love. Last week, Lily came to me with a drawing she made. It was of our family. Me, her, Luke, and Daniel, not Evan. I asked, "Sweetheart, where's Daddy?" She looked at me and said, "He's not around anymore. Daniel's our real dad now." I didn't know whether to cry or scream. That night, I lay awake, thinking about every choice that brought me here. Was I wrong to keep Daniel away? Was I punishing my kids for my own mistrust? Or was I the only one who still remembered that love doesn't erase boundaries? It protects them, because maybe, in everyone else's eyes, I'm the villain for saying no. But if being the villain means keeping my children from being emotionally stolen by a man who isn't their father, then so be it. I'll wear that label forever. Part 2. The custody war. I wish I could say that things settled down after that night, that Daniel backed off, that Evan came to his senses, that my kids understood what I was trying to protect them from. But instead, everything got worse. Much worse. It started with an envelope, thick, official, and heavy with the kind of dread you can feel before you even open it. A petition for custody modification, filed by Evan. But when I looked closer, the documents weren't written in Evan's words. They were Daniel's. Phrases like emotional consistency, stable male role models, secure paternal presence. I could practically hear Daniel's rehearsed, calm, confident tone as I read them. Evan had never written anything like that in his life. I called him immediately. "What the hell is this?" I demanded. He sighed. "Melissa, calm down. Daniel and I just..." "You and Daniel?" I interrupted. "You mean he convinced you to do this, didn't he?" "It's not about him," Evan said. "It's about the kids. They deserve a father figure who's present. You know you can't be everything for them." I laughed, a short, broken sound. "Evan, you barely see them, and now you're letting your friend, the man who used to drink beer with you and complain about your marriage, play daddy. Are you even hearing yourself?" He didn't reply right away. Then, quietly, he said, "You're angry. I get it. But Daniel's not your enemy." "Yes," I said, my voice shaking. "He is. You just can't see it." The following week, I was served papers. Daniel wasn't listed as a guardian. Legally, he couldn't be, but the filing included statements from teachers, neighbors, even mutual friends. Statements that made me sound unhinged, that I was overprotective, controlling, emotionally unstable. One of them even claimed I'd screamed at Daniel in front of the kids and made them cry, something that never happened. I realized then that this wasn't about the law. It was about narrative control. He was building a case not to take my children, but to turn them against me. The court hearing was set for March. In the weeks leading up to it, I started noticing little changes in Luke and Lily. Luke stopped hugging me goodnight. Lily began correcting me. "Daniel says we should do it this way." Every mention of his name was like a knife twisting deeper. One night, I overheard Luke whispering on the phone. He was telling someone about how I didn't let them have fun, how I was always mad. When I gently asked who he was talking to, he just said, "It's Daniel. He checks on us. He cares." That was the moment I broke. The next morning, I drove to Daniel's house. He lived in a quiet cul-de-sac, white picket fences, flowers by the mailbox, everything spotless. The kind of place that looked too good, like it was curated for judgment. He opened the door with a smile. "Melissa, what a surprise." I stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. "You need to stop calling my kids." He raised an eyebrow. "They call me. I don't care who calls who. This ends now." He sighed, leaning against the counter like he was the reasonable one. "You're upset. I get that. But maybe you should ask yourself why they want to talk to me. Maybe it's because they feel safe here, because they trust me." I took a step closer. "You are not their father." He looked me dead in the eye and said softly, "Maybe not. But I'm the one who's there." Something about the way he said it, calm, deliberate, smug, made my skin crawl. At the hearing, Daniel didn't speak directly, but he was there, sitting right behind Evan, nodding along as if he were the one on trial. Evan's lawyer argued that the kids needed a strong, reliable male figure, and that denying them regular contact with Daniel was emotionally harmful. My lawyer pushed back hard, but every time I tried to explain how manipulative Daniel was, I could see the judge's expression tighten, like I sounded paranoid. When I mentioned the second daddy comment, Daniel shook his head slowly, eyes full of false pity. The court ruled against custody modification, thank God, but the damage was done. Because that day, as we left the courthouse, Luke looked up at me and said, "Why are you so mean to Daniel?" After that, things fell apart in silence. The kids were colder, more distant. They didn't say "I love you" as often. They stopped sharing little stories from school. Instead, they'd start sentences with "Daniel says by summer I'd stop trying to correct them. I was tired, physically, emotionally, spiritually." One afternoon, I found Lily sitting in her room drawing again. It was another family picture, me, Luke, her, and Daniel. No Evan this time. I swallowed hard. "Sweetheart," I said gently, "why do you draw Daniel with us all the time?" She smiled. "Because he's always around, Mom. He cares about us more than Dad does." That night, I sat in my car outside the house and cried until I couldn't breathe. Then, a few weeks later, karma arrived, not with revenge, but with revelation. A woman showed up at my office. Late 30s, nervous smile, clutching her purse like a shield. "Are you Melissa?" she asked. "Yes." "I'm Catherine," she said. "I used to date Daniel." My stomach dropped. She told me that Daniel had done the same thing to her, inserted himself into her life, her kids' lives, slowly replacing their father until he had full emotional control. When she finally broke things off, he tried to turn her own children against her too. It took years for them to recover. She even showed me messages, screenshots of Daniel texting her kids things like, "Your mom doesn't understand me like you do, and I'll always be here for you even when she's not." It was the same script, the same manipulation, and suddenly, I wasn't angry anymore. I was terrified. I filed a restraining order the next day. It wasn't easy. He hadn't done anything overtly criminal, but Catherine's testimony helped. He fought it, of course, tried to play the victim. But when the court saw the pattern, two families, the same behavior, they granted the order. Daniel was forbidden from contacting my children directly or indirectly. It should have felt like victory. But when I told Luke and Lily, they both cried. "Why are you doing this, Mom?" Lily sobbed. "He loves us." And I couldn't find the words to explain that sometimes love isn't pure. It's possession dressed as devotion. It's been a year now. The kids are in therapy. Evan still blames me, though I've learned not to care. But every now and then, I catch Lily looking at old photos, ones with Daniel in them. Her fingers trace the edges of his smile like she's trying to remember something beautiful that turned into a nightmare. And I wonder, did I do the right thing? Because protecting your children from danger is one thing, but protecting them from someone they loved, even if that person was a lie, feels like tearing their hearts out to save them. And maybe that's the cruelest part of betrayal. It doesn't end when the villain is gone. It lingers in the silence that follows, where love and distrust quietly learn to coexist. Part 3. The shadow and the messages. Even after the restraining order, I couldn't fully relax. I told myself that with Daniel legally barred from contacting the kids, the danger was gone. But deep down, I knew better. Some people aren't stopped by papers or courts. They're only slowed, a temporary barrier before they escalate. It started with Lily's phone. One night, I noticed her texting late in bed. Normally, she used her phone for friends, homework, or music. But these messages were different. "I miss you. Can't you talk to me? I know you're mad at me. Don't be." I recognized the tone immediately. That calm, coaxing manipulation. I grabbed the phone gently. "Lily, who are you texting?" Her eyes widened. "No one, Mom. Just a friend." But the messages kept coming. Subtle, persistent, careful. Every time I checked, they were gone or deleted. It was Daniel. I felt my chest tighten. I knew I had to act fast. The next day, I scheduled a meeting with Lily. I explained, as gently as I could, that Daniel was trying to manipulate her, and that these messages weren't safe or honest. Her reaction shocked me. "But he's so nice, Mom. He cares about me," she whispered, almost pleading. "Why are you making him the bad guy again?" I knelt down and took her hands. "Because he isn't safe, sweetheart. He's not just a friend. Has someone who wants to control your feelings. He isn't thinking about what's best for you. He's thinking about himself." Lily pulled away, tears streaming down her cheeks. You're lying. Has always been there for me. I didn't argue. I just held her hand and waited because I knew that confrontation wasn't about winning. It was about planting the seed of awareness. That night, the messages escalated. Mom's lying to you. She doesn't want you to see me. Don't listen to her. You can trust me, Lily. It'll always protect you. I saw red. Not the calm, measured red ID practiced for court hearings, pure burning rage. I called the police and my lawyer, explaining the violation. They told me to save the messages as evidence, and that the restraining order would be amended immediately to include digital contact. But legal action wouldn't stop the emotional damage. Over the next week, I watched Lily withdraw. She stopped talking about her day, stopped laughing at her usual jokes, stopped reaching for me at night. One evening, I sat on her bed, exhausted, heart aching. Lily, I said softly, you have to understand something. Daniel isn't your friend. He's dangerous. I know you love him, but love doesn't always mean safety. She shook her head violently. No, you don't get it. He saved me. You're the one keeping him away. I didn't know how to respond. I had never felt more powerless. Not when Evan abandoned them. Not when Daniel manipulated them. And not now, as I tried to protect the one person who needed me the most. 2 days later, the police caught him. Daniel had used a burner phone to contact Lily after school. The officers were calm but firm, escorting him off our property and confirming that he would face serious consequences for violating the restraining order. I expected relief, but instead I felt a gnawing fear, because the damage had already been done. Lily no longer looked at me with the same trust. Every glance, every hesitation, every whispered "I wish he were here" cut deeper than any legal document could shield me from. Over the next few months, therapy helped, but the tension never fully left our home. Lily started keeping journals, carefully written accounts of her interactions with Daniel. She was trying to make sense of what had happened, to separate the manipulations from her own feelings. Noah, though younger and less targeted, began asking questions I wasn't ready to answer. Mom, why did Daniel come here again? Why can't he just leave us alone? I realized then that betrayal isn't always about a single act. It's cumulative. It builds slowly, like water eroding stone, and even when the threat is removed, the cracks remain. One quiet night, as I sat in the kitchen, I thought about everything Daniel had done. The way he insinuated himself into our lives, the way he tried to replace a father, the way he nearly turned my daughter against me. And I made a promise, not to the courts, not to anyone else, but to myself. No one will ever manipulate my children like that again, not even the people who claim to love them, because I realized something terrifying. Sometimes betrayal doesn't come in a single, explosive moment. Sometimes it comes slowly, like a shadow in the night, hiding behind kindness and familiarity. Until one day, you wake up and realize it's almost too late. And I would never let that happen to my children again.